right, so in this video, I'm going to talk about using timers and other techniques to help you focus better. So you can go to a dollar store and buy one of these little kitchen timers that uh, people just use to make sure they don't burn stuff in their kitchens. And I really strongly recommend that you don't rely on something like a cell phone or even a timer within your Chromebook. You can install extensions that do timers, and I have actually a timer extension on my computer, but I still rely on my uh, tried and true um, kitchen timer. And I don't like to use cell phones, Chromebooks, even stopwatches on my watch, especially if it's like a smartwatch, because the whole point of it is to help you focus. And if you start using one of these other devices, you might find yourself uh, getting distracted, right, by these devices that have notifications, that have other apps that you can catch your attention. A timer has a single function, and it basically can help you focus. And if you're struggling with focusing, that might be the things you need to do in order to actually make sure you do. So, how do I use timers? Now, this was a life-changing skill for me when I was in school because I had a lot of trouble focusing and paying attention, being neurodivergent. I was everything caught my attention. I was always overexcited and passionate, and didn't really want to, necessarily do what other people told me to do. But there are things that I needed to get done, and I wanted to be successful in school. It was important to me, and so I started using timers. Now, what I did is basically have two timers. One is a timer that I set to for to set the amount of time that I was supposed to spend with this task. So I might start it at the moment that I start doing the work, and I say this task is supposed to take like maybe 30 minutes for me to complete. And so uh, this is what I call my limit timer. And I make sure that I use this timer so that I don't spend too long with any given task, especially if it's a scheduled task, not like a priority task that I'm supposed to make sure I get done today. If it's something that is on my schedule task, like so from the, if I have a different video where I talk about the Eisenhower matrix, where I talk about what part I have to focus the most in things which are important but not urgent. Usually I schedule those things, and I might say I want to spend about an hour recording videos to help my students with productivity ideas. And so I put a timer so that I don't spend more than an hour, so that it doesn't consume and affect other things in my life which are also important, right? And I need to make sure that those things get done. So uh, that's what I call my limit timer. And so I'll put and I'll give myself an X amount of time to do it. But what happens if I didn't get it done? What if I didn't finish it? Well, then at the end of the timer, I reevaluate the importance of this task, and I decide myself, well, maybe I'll have to reschedule time to work on this again. And that's usually what I do because I try to respect other things which are important in my life. But if I decide that I have the time and that I'm willing to sacrifice some of the other important things, I might continue working on the task, and then I'll reset the time to work on it for a little longer. And that way I try to not let the time not get away from me. So that's my limit timer. But I also have my focus timer. And my focus timer is a short period timer that I use to keep track of how long I've been working on a certain task. So even now, when I'm recording this video, I have my focus timer going because I don't want this video to be too long. So then I want to make sure that I keep track of, limit myself to maintain focus in one task at a time. So now here's what I do this. When I started using this, I used a 10-minute timer. And so I set a timer for 10 minutes, and I would work for those 10 minutes. And if I found that I got distracted during those 10 minutes, then, and at the end of the 10 minutes, I would look at the amount of work I got done, and I'll be like, wow, this is not 10 minutes worth of work. I can do better than this. I have to hold myself accountable for my next 10 minutes. So one way to do this, by the way, is to kind of put a little marking or a highlight the section of your work where you started working at the start of the 10 minutes. So you might want to like just do something like this if you're working on a doc as an example, right? And you might put like a little highlighting like that, and then you write for 10 minutes. And let's say after 10 minutes you only wrote one sentence, so like you're still here, right, after 10 minutes, something like that. Well, obviously you were distracted and doing something else. Someone called you, something caught your attention, you got distracted. So Then you hold yourself accountable, right? After the timer goes off, you contemplate on how much work you've done during that interval. If you feel like you did not done enough, you try to focus better next time. If you did feel like you did a good job, you give yourself props. Just say, I'm going to do even better next time. And reset the timer for 10 minutes and keep going, right? Now, if you find that every time you do a 10-minute timer, you find yourself not happy with how much work you've put in during those 10 minutes, if you know that you can do better, you might be getting distracted sooner than 10 minutes. And you might need to reduce the amount of time you spend with the timer. So you might want to set it to 5 minutes. And even that might be too long. You might have to start yours at 3 minutes. Because if you keep spacing out, that timer will bring you back to earth when it rings, right? And be like, whoa, 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 where's I right now? I mean, I was completely distracted. So that brings you back and refocuses you on a task you need to do. You do your contemplation tasks, like, okay, I'm going to do better this time. You set yourself a goal, you go back to it, and you do it. And if you are doing better, you can start increasing the timer. Like maybe you go 7 minutes, 9 minutes, 11 minutes, 15 minutes. Eventually, you might not even need a focus timer in order to make sure your assignment gets done well. But if you do great, you go up. If you don't do great, you go down. And another skill I try to do sometimes is to reward myself with time. So the way I do this is if I really, really am struggling to focus, what I'll do is I'll set myself a 10-minute timer. I'll push myself and I'll work really hard during those 10 minutes. And then I stop and give myself a 2-minute brain break. And I'll just go take a walk. I stretch. I meditate. I'll go text a friend. I'll do something else. And I reward myself for 10 minutes of productive time. Now, I want to keep increasing the productive time to relaxing time ratio. And a 1-to-5 ratio is pretty still wasteful. You probably want to do slightly better than that if you can, right? So what I would try to do is maybe do maybe a 10-minute timer for every 1 minute would be a more ideal ratio, or maybe not have to reward myself with off task at all if possible. Just do the contemplation task, reset, and get going to the next one. That's the ideal scenario. But it is important, by the way, for maximizing your learning and productivity to not work for, or especially if you're looking at a computer screen for way too long without taking breaks, right? So scheduling those breaks is actually very important. Okay, so then this is a third idea. I'll even write it down over here because this is important so that you can give yourself reward time. So reward time is when you work for a certain amount and then relax for a certain amount. And you want to be at least in a 5-to-1 ratio, but ideally you want to do a 10-to-1 ratio or even better if necessary. And then you also want to do brain breaks, right? So every time, like maybe your limit timer goes off, and those usually will be like 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. And I think 30 minutes is a pretty good limit to any one given task for your limit timer. I will give myself a brain break after 30 to 40 minutes of work, right? On average, depends on how focused you need to be. And this is so that you can actually learn better by actually giving yourself a break. And then you do some exercise, you do some breathing, you can do some stretching, some mindfulness, or just go for a walk. There are many ideas for brain breaks, and I actually have a different video where I talk about some brain breaks, and um, I'll link here on this document to some brain break ideas as well, if you're one of my students and have access to this document. But there's many things that you can do for brain breaks, and it's kind of a good idea to do this every time your limit timer goes off, and set your limit time for 30 minutes. And even if you're doing a task that's supposed to last like 2 hours, I still probably give myself a break every 30 minutes. Go drink some water, right? That's actually a good one there. Hydrate, get a snack, something like that, right? Do things to keep you healthy, to keep you engaged, makes you actually more likely to be able to focus for extended periods of time. So that is focusing with respect to times. I have some other focus ideas, which I will say for the next video.